Thank you very much, Renal. Thank you, Christine. Hello, everyone. So yes, like Renal said, I'm Martina Wan Lockwood, and today I'm going to talk about continuing to grow your career while starting a family. Just going to go over a little bit about myself, just so that you can get to know me a bit better about who I am, and kind of understand where I'm coming from, and then I'm going to talk a little bit more about the last 3 years as far as starting a family, some of the decisions we made and different factors to consider in trying to continue to grow my career. And then end up with go over the successes, the failures, and the lessons learned. So quick background about myself. I'm a mechanical engineer. I went to University of British Columbia. I've been in the biomedical field for about 14 years now. And through that time, I've worked on different processes. I worked on designing different areas of engineering. And over that time, I've also kind of moved into management. And in 2015, I hit a pretty big milestone in my career as becoming, VP of Engineering and Product Development at EVASC Medical Systems. At that time, I was now then supporting some of the sales and marketing side of things. I was traveling to Europe quite frequently as a technical specialist on a product. Our main product that right now we're working on is a stent-like device. It's an implant. It's a brain implant, essentially, for treating people with brain aneurysms. If you're wondering what an aneurysm is, this right here is an X-ray of a patient's brain, and this bulge here is an aneurysm. And what happens is that over time that can rupture, and if that ruptures, it becomes a hemorrhagic stroke, and the result can be quite catastrophic. So our product is used to prevent this rupturing this aneurysm. So it's quite a unique product that we work on, and the scale is very tiny. Just to show you, these arteries are about 2 millimeters, so very, very small. So aside from my career, I've focused a lot on sports. I grew up with 2 older brothers, been very active. I wanted to be, or I was swimming competitively kind of in my earlier years. And then after university, I got into competing in triathlons. In both of them, I wanted to go to the Olympics. Both of them didn't quite make it. Kind of Olympic trials was the level that I got to, but I think it really has molded me and built a foundation of who I am as far as work ethic, overcoming obstacles, goal setting, commitment, and discipline. So as you can see, I've been pretty busy, focusing on sports and career. But in around 2016, so I was 1 year into taking on this role as VP of Engineering, when my partner and I decided. Started the discussion of when would be a good time to start a family? And we really realized that, there was no perfect time. We also realized that there's a lot of unknowns as far as, how long it would take to start a family. And ultimately we decided that, if we were happy with, our job situation, which we mostly were, and in housing, we thought, we were comfortable moving forward with, trying to start a family. We didn't, there's just so many unknowns and so much can change, in months and years. So that's really what started us to, decide to start a family. So in early 2017, we were thrilled and excited that I was pregnant. And at this point, then it really started to hit me as far as, okay, how is this going to impact my career? And what am I going to do? And I had started to kind of in the back of my mind think about, I'll probably take a course or 2 while on mat leave. My plan was to take about 6 to 12 months off, just to stay somewhat engaged. But I really thought that actually I knew that I wanted to do an MBA, and it would be quite a commitment, but it was something that I wanted to do, and I knew that we were starting a family. It was unknown, but it was either we do it now or I do it later, and I didn't know what that was going to look like. And we decided that what would be the worst that would happen is if it didn't work out was I drop out of the MBA or I have to lengthen it. What is really that risk, or what is that I'm really afraid of if it doesn't work out? And really, when I look at that, it wasn't that big of a deal. So we decided, I put in my application, and as we started sharing with friends and family about starting a family and also do my career, the interesting thing I found was kind of the response, not from close friends and family, but kind of beyond that, was a lot of questions as far as, why now, why are you devoting your time, outside of, being focused on being a new parent. And it really kind of questioned me. It actually, made me almost think like, am I being a bad parent for wanting to do, focus a little bit on my career? And it also made me think like, yeah, like maybe I shouldn't do this, or it didn't make me feel very great. Ultimately, with the support that I had, it just made sense, and we wanted, and like I said, I wanted to do this. I knew I wanted to work kind of once we started a family. So we said, why not? Let's just do this. So here I am, 8 months pregnant. This was 3 years ago, almost exactly 3 years ago, starting my MBA at 8 months pregnant. So while I made these decisions, I want to go through some of the things that we had to consider, because these were big, undertakings that we were doing. And so things to consider, from the start of this year was, the type of program, the schedule, the timetable. We knew that, I wanted to nurse. We knew that, the moment my son was born, so this was a month into my program, that, I would need to feed every 3 hours. How was that going to work? So kind of in our planning stages, we had talked about, researching and understanding, okay, this newborn baby is going to need to take a bottle. That was our plan. And, sometimes that works. For any parents that are on this call right now, that, things don't always work out as planned, especially with kids. Nursing for me didn't actually go as smooth, but he took a bottle really well early on. But then that switched at about 3 months, where I was now feeding, but then he wasn't taking a bottle. And so I ended up having to, my partner would stroll our son into my class during my break at 7:15 to 7:30. I would nurse, or in some cases, this picture here is me taking my economics final exam while feeding, just trying to do whatever I can to stay in class. The timetable I ended up taking was 2 nights a week and some weekends, and that's ended up worked out well for us. The other thing that we considered was also just, fitting in time for myself, and even time for my partner, for himself, realizing that, life just gets really busy, and starting a family was really busy, and at times can get quite stressful. And sometimes just, taking that time away for each of us was really important. And for me, I found that running, because I'd been active, was something that I wanted to fit in. And it was a blessing, and something that I've learned that I want to keep in, and making that fit in our schedules, because it was a time for myself, truly. Studying wasn't really time to myself, but going for a run was. It helped me clear my mind, and I felt like I had more energy after it. And so kind of my philosophy now has been, strong body, strong mind, and making sure that we fit that in. So that year went by pretty quick. And so as I finished off, it's a 2-year program, half of my MBA, I was now going to start planning to go back to work. And, things that we're considering now was, daycare, or lack of, ended up having to cobbling our schedule around to fit for daycare. Vancouver daycare is challenging, but like everything, you just find a way as a parent, some of you, whoever's out there, but, we just had to cobble kind of part-time daycare, help from my mom. Me and my partner would find time just to be able to take care of our son. And then we kind of, a few months in, started talking about, well, let's grow our family even more. We had talked about wanting 2 kids, and talked about wanting to be close in age. And we went through that same little checklist. We thought, we both had jobs, we both had a housing situation that we're happy with, so why not? So here I am, this was early January, where I was pregnant with baby number 2. And so we were excited about that. And the other part that, planning was time management. So now that I was back at work full time, fitting in classes, and with not really good daycare situation, life was getting quite busy. And it definitely was challenging. I thought ideally in my head, I was fit, studying in between 8 to 10 p.m. each night to fit that in. But, plans don't always go accordingly, and sometimes you just have to adjust. And there was a lot of juggling of schedules, and that was kind of a common theme. And I think in the end, it's just finding a finding a time that works. So for me, it ended up being on the weekends, early morning. I would go to Starbucks, and my partner would take time, and I would have a good 4-hour chunk. But then I would be able to spend the rest of the day with my family because that was important. I wanted to, be able to have that time on the weekends with them. And in some extreme cases, I would work kind of late on Friday or Saturday nights. That was kind of another time that I could have where it would be quiet, and, taking my caffeine and get a good few 4 or 5 hours as well. So whatever that works, we just had to find a way to make that work. And that was especially difficult kind of, through my first trimester, where it's just quite exhausting during that time. And so just really was getting through. There are times that were sometimes, I was like, I don't know if I can do this, just fitting everything in, but, persevering through and, getting support as needed or asking for help when you needed really helped get me through. So this is, here I am at the end of my MBA program. This is our last team project. I was now 7 months pregnant and finishing up and doing a presentation to Salesforce. So, that year was so busy, but it was about getting it done and, completing the MBA right when baby number 2 was born. So another chapter begins, and I was starting my mat leave again for number 2. And this was an interesting time because I was so excited to get the MBA done, but then I actually became a little worried that, I finished all this education and put in all this time and effort that, wait a sec, now I'm going to be back on mat leave, worried that all this effort that I put in was going to be lost. And fortunately, I thought, okay, maybe there's some volunteer work. And I came across SCWIST, and an amazing organization supporting women, supporting and removing barriers for women into STEM. And I really believed in this as well. And also there was an opportunity to be on the board, which is something that I've always wanted to do as well. So I took on the role as Director of Business Development. So that was my way to, continue to grow my career as well. And then, I thought it was going to be a time a little more relaxing without the MBA. It's all kind of expectations, but having 2 kiddos with different schedules, not all babies are the same, that's for sure. Any parents out there will know that. There's their personalities, everything about them are different. So, I should have known this, obviously, that, it's hard to plan because it's just constantly juggling. And then COVID happened, and then, as everybody knows, you kind of just have to cobble again and juggle everything. And ultimately, I think it's realizing that, you just have to make the most of any situation and just try the best you can. That's all you can ask for, I think, ultimately, and be happy with it and not overstress it. So that's what we did. And so here we are today. We're now a family of 4. I'm back at work, and we're still running after our dreams. But one thing that has been interesting is, my career has expanded, or my role has expanded now that I've gone back to work. So I'm now 3 weeks back to work. The person that was taking over for me had been doing a great job. Our company has been growing. And so we've hired him to take on more of a management level on the engineering side, which I still oversee. But then now with my added education and experiences on the business development side of things, and with my MBA, I've now been tasked to oversee the commercialization side of things. So, I was able to expand my role through this time, which, was probably a lot more than I expected. And to just see this fruition, it's been actually really great to see. And so with that, when I go back to look at, the past 3 years and, what I was able to do, it was great to see that, I was still able to put in about 20 months on mat leave and spend that time with my kids. I finished with my MBA, and I was able to build a broader network, make some new friends, build some new skills, some new experiences, and, I had a fairly smooth transition back to work. After baby number 2, after baby number 1 wasn't as smooth as planned, but, you learn and you just try your best for next time. And so that's what happened for me. And then just a little bit more confidence going back to work. I really realized that, baby brain, people might hear, is real. You know, it's like, I think people call it like a flexing of a muscle. And so, you know, when you're with your kids all the time, you know, you kind of work on some different parts of your brain, I feel like. And, you know, getting back to work does take a bit of an adjustment. And by just doing some volunteer work or, you know, doing my, my school, I think really helped me kind of get up to speed a little bit quicker, and just a little bit more confident going back, because it is a big change. And it is quite a transition. And then feeling a little bit empowered, kind of as I touched on at the beginning, there was, you know, kind of a lot of negativity or questioning as far as like, why do you want to continue, you know, growing your career while starting a family? And, you know, coming out of it, you know, I definitely knew it was the right decision, and I'm glad I persevered through that. And so that definitely, you know, made it feel worth it. And then if we talk about failures, you know, there were a lot of things that didn't go as planned, kind of as I touched on before. You know, things that sometimes we think with a plan that we can do. So, you know, some examples are, you know, my partner had started some volunteer work, but he had to quit early. It just ended up being too much, and we just had to say, you know, we'll have to stop this for now and pick it up later on. Even as SCWIST director, generally it's a 2-year term, and I ended up only doing 1 year, barely fitting in this 1 year. You know, I just realized it was just too much, and I really wanted to be able to give more to the organization, and just wasn't able to provide enough. And I just realized that, you know, maybe this isn't the right time, and I tried, and I still think there's a lot of positives that came out of it, and hopefully on both sides, you know, I was able to help participate as needed, and on the flip side, I was also able to gain some experience and just meet some amazing women. As far as, you know, I had some goals for my running, you know, I didn't hit that, and that's just part of sport. Is you kind of throw at a lofty goal and you just try for it. But more than anything, I wanted to hold myself accountable to continue to stay active and, you know, push myself that way. You know, and there's a lot of part of the planning that I mentioned is like feeding and daycare, and there's so many different areas that, you know, didn't work out as planned, but you kind of just had to make do, and they're still just, you know, I don't really think of it as failures. They were just learnings along the way. You know, I think you can always just learn something from it, you know. And if I were to kind of summarize everything that this past 3 years has been, you know, I think I started off, probably didn't do as well, and kind of pick these up later along the way, was, you know, really sharing your goals. I found that, you know, having the support and being able to talk about it, it holds me accountable, but it also, you know, makes the, you know, the successes that much greater, and the, you know, the failures or the things that didn't happen, you know, not so bad, really. As you can see here, you know, it does take a village, you know, when starting a family, and if you want to work on building your career, you know, there's just so much that goes into it. It definitely wasn't just me, you know, doing my MBA. It was all this other support that helped me through it. The other part was just being agile. If anybody does project management, this is a common theme, and I found that was applied to life here as well. You know, life is unpredictable generally, and I found that kids are probably like, you know, even more unpredictable. So constantly it's like trying to put in a plan, you try, and then just kind of iterating and having to adjust as you need to and make the best of it. And then lastly, really, it's just being kind to yourself. I mean, it is truly an amazing time starting a family, and they are the world to me. And you know, career is important, and you know, you can try your best to support that. You know, and you know, if things don't work out, which sometimes they don't, then it's okay. And there's a lot that goes into it. And really, kind of through this process, as I was going through, what I really realized was that, you know, there really needs to be more support for women and in their careers. And, you know, you know, like I said, a lot of people question why I did this and things that this, you know, think that, wow, this is really great. But, you know, it's almost, I feel like we should normalize this as far as, you know, why can't we as women, you know, still continue to grow our career and not question it, and it would be more supportive, I think. So Yeah, so that's just the story I want to share. Is, really, it's whatever you want to do with it. If you want to go to career, great. If you don't, that's also great. Just to know that is there and that is possible. So there you go. That's my story. And yeah, if you have any other in more in-depth questions or anything else, feel free to contact me as well. And so I think now we're going to do, if there's any questions, we'll go through that now.
Thank you so much, Martina. What really struck me in your talk is that it takes a village, not only to raise a child, but to support, to have a woman successful in her career. So we're open to questions. If you type in your questions in the chat box, and I'll read it from there.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Where did you find the energy to do all that? I have a 3-year-old and I have a full-time job. And on the side, I'm doing some studying, and I try to fit a book here and there, and I'm just exhausted. I got half an hour of sleep last night. Just my brain was racing. Where do you find the energy to do all that?
Yeah, good question. I think I mentioned this. It is a struggle. It is hard. It isn't easy. And so I had to play around with the different types of schedules to make it work, and really realize like if it was important to fit it in. So for me, like I said, being active, I know how much that takes out energy and into your time, but it actually made me feel more energetic. So, sometimes if, I had blocked amount of time to do some work, if I'm tired at all starting it, I was not going to be efficient. I quickly kind of realized that. And, sometimes it was like knowing maybe I can fit in a quick run or something active just to get me some adrenaline going maybe. But that helped to then start me doing, some studying or reading, because that stuff I found it was different. And moving that stuff to the morning rather than the evening, sometimes you think you want to do it at the end of the day because that's where you'll fit it in. But in the end, for me, I found, when it's quiet and having to concentrate and think and really focus, for me, it was finding time in the morning and that being the first thing that I did. And so rather than doing it later, sleep early, do that early. Or like I said, the other one that I did was kind of in the extreme cases where it was like, let's just do a late night. Probably sounds like what you did, today or last night. And that works too. And then just realize that the next day I'm going to be a little bit groggy, a little bit tired. But then, kind of get through, catch up on the sleep and other part. But at least you know that you were really efficient. That was the biggest thing, was making sure that the time that I'd allocated to studying or to, this other side, was that it was effective. And I didn't want that time to be wasted, because I found that sometimes when I was tired, to do an hour work could have taken me 5 hours, but it's just because I was tired. And, making sure that I catch up, being like, if I'm not ready to put in that time, catch up, take a nap or go for a run, to make sure that when I spend an hour, it's an hour of focused time. Don't know if that helps.
It's a good one.
Thank you.
Question from Tracy. Martina, did you experience any assumptions at your workplace about returning to work? Example, that you would need time off, you wouldn't want a leadership role, and others.
Interesting. Yeah, for sure. I think actually both times I came back to work, they had kids themselves, so they were definitely like, do you want to come back part-time? Do you want to come back not 100% full-time? So they did make some assumptions that I wouldn't. And for my first baby, when I went back to work, I did take that up. I did take an 80% because daycare was in flux. I actually needed to come back part-time, and I was glad that there was that flexibility. And the second time when I come back to work, they offered the same thing, and I said, actually, I want to come back full-time. I'm ready to go. I feel just rested and I feel ready to go. And as far as like taking a leadership role, I think what has helped was, planning for going off and planning for when I come back. So, before I went on mat leave, I had, spent extra time planning as far as who would take over my role. So I made it known that this person or, this amount of work was going to be passed off, but I would come back and retain my role coming back. And, by, coming back as a leadership role, on the second one, I did actually also ask for an expanded role, because whether they were going to give it to me or not, you know, you sometimes have to take a little bit in your own hands as well, and ask for it. If you don't ask for it, you're not going to get it. So whether they thought of it or not, I kind of put it into their face and presented to them, you know, what I wanted.
Next question from Madeline. What made you choose to do an MBA as opposed to other types of degrees?
Yeah, good question. It just seemed fitting with where I was in my career. I had spent so much time on the engineering, the technical side, that as I was starting to touch on the sales, marketing, the business end of it, I really wanted to understand that. And so the MBA for me was now taking a step back as a business as a whole. I, you know, spent so much time, you know, being tasked as on the technical side as like find a solution to this problem and doing it. But I wanted to make sure that what we were solving was the right problem that we were solving and the right way of going about it and understanding kind of how that would function. And so that's how I decided to choose an MBA.
Okay. Not a question, but a comment. Okay. Thank you, Martina. I've known Martina from Delia since we were kids, and she's always had this drive and passion. So inspiring. I also believe that it takes a village, and having good, supportive people around you really matters. I have many days where I would text Martina and say that it's so difficult balancing it all, and would just talk it out. Having other women to lean on is so important. Oh, that's so true.
Thanks, Julia.
Okay, you have wonderful friends.
Yes, I do. I'm very lucky.
Thank you. So there are no more questions. We've made our SCWIST event announcements. Thank you so much for attending this brown bag. We'll let you go and enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you so much.
Bye. Thank you.